allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are we live now, Susan?
You are live.
Okay, good. Thank you. Now, first up, thanks for everybody for being here. We got consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And Jason is just in time. You're muted though, Jason. Next up, we have Carver, Lori, and James. CPA Jason Lund is going to go over the Park County audit with us. Good morning, Jason.
Hi there. Can you hear me good?
Yep, sounds great.
All right, great. Okay, well, thanks for letting me join you today. Do you all happen to have a copy of the audit report in front of you?
Say it. Good, go ahead.
Yes, it's on our program.
It's on, we've got it electronically, yes.
You got it electronically? Okay. Would you like me to share my screen so that you can see the audit report as I talk about it, or would that not help?
Works for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I will share my screen. Give me half a second here. It's always fun trying to figure out how to move these little things out of the way. Sorry. All right. Okay. Well, I sure appreciate the opportunity to present this audit report to you all. You know, this definitely isn't typical for us to be issuing a report so late in the year. We were getting towards the end there, had wrapped up a lot of our audit work, and then in December, as we were talking about subsequent events and reading the rest of the board meeting minutes or the commissioners meeting minutes, we learned about the CRF money that was going to be received, and that had a big impact on our single audit. What I did was when we learned about it, I did a little research. I called the AICPA's hotline, their Government Audit Quality Center. They advised us that we were not supposed to issue the report until the compliance supplement come out. That actually came out just a couple days before Christmas. And then we felt that it was prudent that we didn't also move forward with finalizing the audit until the county had received those funds from the state, so that we knew that the state was all right with those reimbursements as well. That had a big impact on our audit, especially as it relates to the uniform guidance portion of the audit, or the single audit that's required by the federal government, because so much of that money was funded by the federal government. So all that work that we did back in October, and then, you know, over the past several months, more recently, has provided us a basis to form an opinion over these financial statements. And we believe that these financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. And, you know, I'm looking on page 1 here. It's got our letterhead. Page 2 is where it talks about our opinions there and spells out what I just explained to you. Down further on page 2, in the other information section, it talks about the supplementary information that is presented, and also it talks about the single audit that was performed. And so what I'd like to do now is go further back into the report. So that's our report over the financial statements as a whole, page 1, 2, and on page 3. And then on page, I'm going to go back here to page 52 of the PDF file. This is page 44 and 45 of the printed report. This is our report over internal controls. So when we come in each year and we do the audit, we take a fresh look. We have some history with you all, which makes it nice so that we can gain some efficiencies. But we look at, okay, what controls are in place, and then we go to designing our procedures so that we can get enough assurance over the financial statements as a whole to give an opinion on them. And so government auditing standards requires us to provide this report and to denote if we find any problems with the internal control structure as it relates to how we designed our procedures. And so in connection with that, we did not find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the internal control structure as it relates to internal controls. So that's good there. Now, if you go with me to page 54 of the PDF file, 46 of the report. Okay, here, this is our report over compliance for each major program. And so because the county received or spent over $750,000 of federal money during the year, we were required to do this audit, these procedures over the major programs. The major programs for the year, there's two of them. There's the CRF money that we talked about, and then there's the election equipment, okay? And the election equipment, as we look at these two, so what we'll do is we'll go to the schedule of findings and question costs, and we'll talk about kind of what are our summary results, okay? So our summary results is that we didn't have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over the internal control over financial reporting. We did, however, find one material weakness over the federal awards. And this one is related to the Help America Vote election security money, or not really money that was received, it was the equipment that was received. It was non-cash equipment that was received. And we described that finding here on page 49, 57 of the PDF file. Essentially, this is, I'll tell you, this is a common finding for the other counties that we audit in Wyoming. So we've seen this with other places, and you know, as we're doing our work, we send out confirmation letters, okay, to the various sources where the state entities, various sources that you get money from. We send those confirmation letters, and then we trace and compare that against what is reported in your accounting records. It provides us a really, really good assurance over the revenues that the revenues are complete, right? That somehow the revenues haven't been diverted in a different direction is what the confirmation procedures that we do provides. And so in connection with doing that, we received confirmation letter information on this equipment. And this equipment was not recorded on the CFA. And because of that, we have a material weakness there that we've reported. And Colleen has provided a written response. And based on having read her response and talking with management there at the county, I believe that they're taking this matter seriously and that it will be fairly addressed going forward is my hope. And so, you know, but again, this is something that it's a non-cash item. It is required to be reported in the financial statements on the CFA, and so that's why we're reporting that. Now, with that, the next part, those are all of our reports over the financial statements. The next part of my presentation will just be discussing the financial statements themselves. Before I move on to that part, are there any questions?
I don't think so. Any questions on that? Nope, doing good. Thank you, Jason.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys. Okay, so let's talk about the statement of net position here. This is on page 4 of the report, page 9 of the PDF file. You know, the statement of net position, what it does is it brings in all short-term and long-term assets, short-term and long-term liabilities, and it shows the financial statements on a full accrual basis. Okay, this might be a little different than what you're used to seeing from some of the reports that you receive from management, where they're more focused on the budget and the cash that's actually spent, because this includes some non-cash items. All right, and so as we look at this, overall, cash, that's probably one of the most important factors to kind of consider here. Overall cash for the governmental activities column, it went from $22 million last year up to $23.7 million this year. So there's positive results in terms of the cash on hand at the end of the year. The receivables, as you keep going down that column here, the receivables went up, and that was primarily inside of the intergovernmental receivables and primarily due to the CRF funds that were receivable at the end of the year. And then otherwise, the asset section, pretty comparable. Depreciable assets were down by about $2 million, and that's primarily because the capital additions or the depreciation expense outpaced the capital additions by $2 million. As we look into the liabilities section of the statement of net position, we see that, hey, your liabilities are down as compared to last year. The net pension liability decreased. This was primarily a result of the state plan as a whole going from $3.05 billion down to $2.35 billion. And the county is required to pick up just a portion of that liability. And so with that, let's go, that's the balance sheet there, or the statement of net position. Let's go and look on page 5 of the report now. On page 5, this shows the change in net position from last year. So you'll see down here on this line that I'm highlighting there, the governmental activities had a decrease of $395,000 for the year. Business type activities, which is the landfill, had an increase of $344,000. So overall, the primary government of the county was close to break even with a small loss of $51,000 for the year. Now, let's move on to page 6. So on page 6, this is your governmental funds balance sheet. This balance sheet does not include all of your long-term assets and long-term liabilities, as was the case back on page 3, or page 4. And so what we see here is, we see overall cash as compared to last year, it increased again, as we saw on the previous page there. It went from $21.6 million last year up to $22.9 million when you combine all the cash, restricted cash, and the investments together. Overall, let's see. Yeah, overall, there was this increase with the receivable balance because of the CRF monies, and a portion, and there was an increase in the deferred inflows as well as a result of those monies not being available within 60 days. So any receivables that are not available to the county within 60 days in the form of cash, that is going to be reported as a deferred inflow and unavailable revenue, and the revenue at the fund level will be recognized in the following year. On page 7 here, this is reconciliation between the statement of net position and your balance sheet for the governmental funds. Page 8, we look at this, and this is going to be more similar to what you're used to seeing from management, okay, and what you're seeing in your budget. The revenues for the year, you see we have it at, for the governmental funds, at $25.2 million. Last year was at $24.8 million. So we have a little bit of an increase in the revenues for the year. Expenses were down. They're at 24.05 million for this year, and they were 24.9 million last year. So that's good, and overall, with a positive net change in the fund balance of $1.2 million, that shows that, hey, you guys did a pretty good job of managing your budget for the year. And so, that kind of, you'll see that $1.2 million versus I talked about the little bit of a loss from last year, the $395,000. This is governmental activities. And so this shows the reconciliation on page 9, going from that $1.2 million gain to the $395,000 loss, and the items that drive that in between: the capital asset activity, the pension liability activity, and then the internal service fund and your available revenues, or reconciling items there. Now on page 10, here, page 15 of the PDF file, this is a look at the landfill and the internal service fund. This is the statement of net position for them. So this is on a full accrual basis as well. When you look at, the landfill and the results for the year, cash and investments are up from last year. They're up, see, the 4.2 plus the 792, that's right at about $5 million. And last year, the landfill was at $4.3 million. So they had positive results in terms of cash flow for the year. The liabilities overall decreased as compared to the prior year. A good portion of that, there was a little bit of an increase in the closure and post-closure liability. That was $3.2 million in the prior year. But the net pension liability decreased this year. And that, again, that's just because of overall the state change with the report that they receive from their auditor and their actuary, the overall net pension liability going from $3 billion down to $2.35 billion. So that being said, let's go on to page 11 here, page 16 of the report. The landfill, the revenues on the landfill were really steady as compared to last year. The operating expenses, there was an increase in that, but that's because of this change in the closure and post-closure estimate. Last year was a contra expense item, and with it now being a positive expense item in the current year, that's really the primary change in the expenses for the landfill for the current year. So overall, positive results for the landfill. These presentations, I really do probably prefer to be in person with you all. And, of course, weather and COVID and all that probably doesn't make it possible. So apologize that I couldn't be in person. I tried to kind of go through this briskly, primarily because sometimes I don't know whether I'm telling you how to build a watch or I'm telling you the time. So with that's really what I have as far as prepared remarks. So if you have any questions, or if you'd like to go over any other parts of the audit report, I'd be happy to do that.
Does anyone have any questions for Jason? Glad we came through in good shape like we have in the past, and we've gotten better over the years. I think Commissioner Tilden and I were here when we had the very first, we had to have the audit, and it was a lot different picture than we have now. But so I think I applaud our staff for getting us where we are today. And like I say, does anyone have any questions, comments for Jason? At least you didn't have to fly up here or drive up here for 20 minutes, Jason.
I would just
I
say,
appreciate that. I had planned to be in our Sheridan office this week. We just hired another CPA in that office, and I was gonna go up there and meet with her and everything. But man, with this weather the way it was, I kind of called off that trip. So I'll go up there next week probably.
Barb?
One thing we appreciate is, this firm always comes back with ideas for us every year to improve, which we appreciate. They're always looking at items and they go a little deeper and a little different each year. So they've been a good firm,
Great.
especially with COVID.
Well, we enjoy our relationship with your firm.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thanks guys. I appreciate the time, and I will say, as a closing note, is that hey, these audits they don't come together as cleanly as this all the time. This one we had a few bumps along the ways, but with the CRF money, I think that it was warranted for us to pump the brakes on getting this report out in a timely manner that we normally do. And we sure appreciate the help and cooperation that we receive from Barb and Colleen and their staff folks in their offices. They're great to work with, and we appreciate their help and cooperation. It seems like they take their job seriously, and that's what we appreciate in clients, is the ones that are, trying their best to have good financial reporting. So.
All right. Well, we sure appreciate it. Enjoy it. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, next up, we do have an executive session. I said he would Brian to see if he was just let him know we're running early. So, but we can go ahead and move in. I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
Second. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we're in a
funny how different places in the country respond to snow and ice.
Like, if you don't have more than one snowfall a year, they don't wanna buy hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of
But
damage.
just let it depreciate.
Yeah,
Well, in
yeah,
Texas, the water lines are buried like 6 inches.
yeah.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
had,
so they're freezing. Oh,
yeah, you don't have to bury that deep down that country.
No, not normally,
not normally, except for this year.
Yeah.
but they're losing water lines or power out, I mean, this is them.
Dusty looked like Rob was having a good old time on Saturday.
Oh my God. Yes, he was.
Great.
Just came home just absolutely stoked, and then they went back up on Sunday with the grandkids, and then yesterday went to Meadowlark. I'm like,
Wow.
just go.
Just go.
He couldn't go to
What do you-
Canada, so he's so disappointed.
Okay, what do you say about Meadowlark? How was it over there?
He's in Vermont, take care of the grandkids till I get there today, so I haven't.
Was he I think, I got a trail broken out, actually, looked pretty good. I debated on just taking damn loader up, plowing the road into it, but.
Depends on how far you have to go. Yeah, could be a day job.
You can come in if you like.
Closing
the door.
That'll teach him.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
He
I won't
can
bite.
sit, he can, Cody can sit in the corner. I bet he spent a little time there when he was a kid.
As long as you're harder on me and not on him. He's probably used to it.
All right, we'll get started again, folks. Up next, we have Park County Planner 2, Kim Delavan, Straw Igloo. This is a public hearing, so Straw Igloo Minor Subdivision Sketch Plan Review.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this property is in the zoning district residential 1/2 acre. The planning area is POW. We did receive an application for this minor subdivision in December of last year, including all the other documents, including the sketch plan. And the requested action is for approval of this 4-lot minor subdivision. It's 5 lots being split into one 1.56 acre lot, 2 1.06 acre lots, and 1.32 acre lots, all for residential use. The location, you saw this in figure 3, it's located on County Lane 9. It's just west of Powell city limits. And this property currently has an address of 1015 County Lane 9. And of course, like I mentioned, you've had a chance to see the sketch plan, front and back, back essentially legend and some notes. I mentioned this is in the residential 1/2 acre zoning district, and these lot sizes as proposed are consistent or allowed in that zoning district. In terms of neighboring use, you can see, or you saw in figure 4, the land uses surrounding this parcel are residential vacant or agriculture. There are 2 nearby subdivisions. One is directly south and one is just to the east. And Mr. Chairman, in figure 4, it's not on this figure, but those areas that are highlighted in light green, I believe that's the city of Powell. So again, fairly close, and subdivisions close to this proposed subdivision. All the notices have been met. Notice of intent to subdivide was published in November, December of last year. Notice of public hearing for today was in the Powell Tribune, January 28th and February 9th of this year. And also on February 2nd, that certified notice mailing was sent out to neighboring property owners. Staff report was shared with all of you and with the applicant prior to today. We had a long list of agencies we notified. Park County Fire District, they were notified. They said they can provide fire protection should it be necessary. Northwest Rural Water was contacted. They responded. They don't have any water lines close, and they said that it would be fairly expensive. Of course, it's relative, but expensive to get water there. And so, as you know, this property is planning for wells. School district said they can provide bus service along Lane 9. I'm sure they probably already have it. TCT said they could provide wireless internet service. Also, this location does have adequate phone cell service, because when I was out there taking photos, I always try to make a call to check that, and they do have adequate service. Postal service can deliver mail. MDU, they can provide natural gas to each one of these lots. They do have a gas main located currently on the south side of County Lane 9. Weed and pest made an inspection, no noxious weed species, and therefore a weed management plan is not required. Mary requests that they follow best management practices. Shoshone Irrigation District, they were notified, they responded. They do have a pipeline that is on the south edge of this property. They requested an easement. And also, of course, since this is a subdivision, we require a irrigation distribution plan be submitted. That was submitted to Shoshone, and they did approve that. So that distribution plan has been okayed by Shoshone. Treasurer said property taxes are paid. Rocky Mountain Power, They have the ability to provide electricity, and they do have currently overhead power lines on the south side of the county lane 9. Game and Fish responded. No major concerns with wildlife. However, they did make a general statement that they do have some concerns with the number of subdivisions that are going in and people evidently planting plants that are attracted to deer. And so evidently there's some danger in deer showing up in some of these urban subdivisions. Public Works responded. They talked about all the lots have legal access to Lane 9. They talked about Lane 9 being a county road maintained by the county. Also, Public Works does not need a drainage or erosion control plan. They have no concerns with that. The Powell Clarksville Conservation District responded with a soils report. Of course, for solid waste, a number of companies are available, including Keel, and Keel actually did respond. City of Powell, we contacted them, and they did respond. Essentially, they really have no problems or no concerns with the subdivision. I think in their letter, they said this does not conflict with any of their requirements. Mr. Chairman, we've not received any written public comments. Some time ago, we did receive a phone call. I believe it was a neighbor to the west wondering about where driveways would be. There may be future driveways. There are current driveways. And again, Public Works has no problem with access.
So, Mr. Chairman, could I ask, so each individual lot will have its own driveway off of Lane 9?
Well, that is, my understanding is that's to be determined. Public Works said they could have that. I don't know if that's planned or not, but according to Public Works, that would be fine, is my understanding, if they do that. And I know there are current driveways. There's one on the very west side. There's one on the very east side. The one on the very east side currently serves proposed lot 1, and the one on the west side can serve proposed lot 4.
Right, but it would be shared then with that property to the west.
Yeah, it could be, and there is an easement on here that allows that to
But I see
occur.
it's only for agricultural use only. That's why I was questioning where they're on the plat. It says, show us, it says
That
access easement in favor of lot 4 and the adjoining property owner to the north and west was restricted for use of agricultural purpose only. So how do they get, so that tells me that lot 4 would have to have its own access off of Lane 9 as well.
Yeah, according to Public Works, access is going to be sufficient. I don't know if lot 4 is planning for a new driveway or not. Sorry, I can't answer that any better than that. And maybe, I know Scott Lewis is here. He might be able to address that in a minute or now.
Let's go ahead and get through the report and then we'll
Okay.
start.
Okay, and I'll try to be quick. No written public comments have been received. Planning and Zoning Commission, they reviewed the sketch plan on January 20th of this year. They recommend approval. They had a whole list of conditions. A lot of those conditions are already been met. There's a few conditions that are being saved, obviously, for the final plat. There was a pre-app meeting that occurred on November 24th of last year with Mr. Lewis in attendance and our planning and zoning staff. We did receive a title report. No roads are proposed for this subdivision. I did mention solid waste disposal service is available. I did mention the utilities, gas, and electricity are already on the south side of Lane 9, and those utilities can be, they have the capacity to make those available for each one of those. We know of no known landslides or other hazards. A sketch plan was provided. You had a chance to see that. The applicant did provide a subsurface evaluation. That, of course, has to occur on a minimum of 2 lots. It was done on 2 lots. Perk rates were 20 minutes per inch and 60 minutes per inch. Groundwater on one lot was found at 8 feet. Groundwater on another lot was found at almost 8 feet. Of course, I mentioned that these lots will be served will have domestic water served by wells. There was a water sample that was taken from a faucet on proposed lot 1, and it met all the safe drinking water requirements. There was no coliform that was found. Nitrogen was below the cutoff standard. TDS was over 400, but it still was below that required standard of 500. No other toxins were found except lead. Lead was a little bit high. And that, therefore, we had a recommendation that a note be on the plat talking about the potential for high lead in the groundwater. Ag impacts, you saw the applicant wrote a paragraph addressing that. This property is not in an ag overlay district. In fact, it's not in any overlay district. As I mentioned, approved water distribution plan has been submitted. In terms of irrigation, because this is a minor, we're not requiring state review to occur. And Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions if I can.
Any questions for Kim from staff? Okay. Address the question that came up, if you would.
Yeah.
Public hearing, go ahead and state your name.
Yeah, my name is Scott Lewis. I'm with Tramit Engineering Surveying. And I prepared this information. Seems like the biggest concern is over the access and we have historically, the client has told me repeatedly that they had shared accesses on the east and shared accesses on the west with their adjoining neighbors, and yet we could not find any data to that effect in the title information. So, but we're still trying to live by that, is our understanding. And so the purpose of the access on the west, which is the one that you asked about, we've gone back and forth trying to word that as such, but the intent is, and then I'll point you to a note, but the intent is that the adjacent owner on the west has access, just access. And the lot 4 owner has that same access. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so that we're not using that access for a future subdivision. And so we're trying to put a restriction on the adjoining owner to the north, not saying that he can't use it, but he can use it for agriculture purposes only. And so in our note, we try to clarify that. Note number 9 on the latest version that I submitted reads as follows. Access to the subdivision lot is proposed to be off of adjoining Park County Lane 9 to the south of each lot. Shared access is provided along the east subdivision boundary in favor of lot 1 and the adjoining owner to the east. A second shared access is provided along the west subdivision boundary in favor of lot 4 and adjoining property owner to the west and north. This second access easement can be used for lot 4 and the adjoining owner to the west as shown, but also has restriction allowing use by said adjoining landowner to the north for agricultural purposes only. And so that's what we're trying to convey. I
Okay.
hope that answers the question.
Yeah, clear as mud. Anyone else, any further questions, comments? It is a public hearing. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I brought up the access, it was, I actually had the landowner to the west contact me with the concerns that, the access, I understand what you're saying, it basically splits the boundary, the roads, but basically you got a subdivision coming in, now he's had his own driveway, and now he's unwillingly has become part of a subdivision in the shared access.
How's his, so we could be getting into a civil issue. How's his?
I think so.
How's his easement? That's how's his easement described. You know, it's great if a guy goes along, has an easement for 100 years but it's across somebody else's property and then all of a sudden they decide to.
The question is his, to me, is half of the road is on him. He's not part of the subdivision. He already has a way in.
Mhm.
And however, now the subdivision has a right to his half of the road.
Again, that's probably a civil issue. Because,
I understand that, and
Yeah.
I agree with you on it. However, if we're approving this, we're encroaching on a neighbor's driveway and saying you have to give up half of your driveway.
go ahead,
Well,
Darcy.
I guess I would question the fact that the property ownership exists and has existed with half of that road, it looks like. That's where the property line is, so it's always been a situation where half of the road belonged to one guy and half belonged to another. It may not have been a subdivision, but the property line splits that access. So I don't think they're changing anything.
But so what you're trying to say, are you saying, Lloyd, are you saying that it's his property, it's his road, and
Well, let's say half of it is.
well, half of it is, well, if he's granted an easement, the only way they can use it is if he's granted an easement.
And has he?
Well, that's a question for, so I mean, are you hearing what we're saying?
Well, we are granting our 20-foot of the easement. We have contacted the west property owner who, this is the public meeting. I don't know if it's fair that he can comment prior to the meeting, and I don't know if he's here or not, but anyway, we have given our 20-foot easement in because that's historically how it's been used. That's historically what we wanted to convey. We asked our adjacent landowner to the west if he would grant any easement back to us. And his interest is that he wants to buy lot 4. And so he doesn't want to grant an easement back to us. So we're doing what we can do.
Yeah. Joe?
Well, Mr. Chairman, it seems to me that the question is, was there ever a recorded easement across these two pieces
We
of property?
cannot find it.
Okay, then that's something you gotta take care of before this thing can get moved forward.
Well, we are on our plat presenting our 20-foot easement.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Which would be also for the property owner to the west, so
Right.
20 feet in proposed lot 4.
But to answer your question, we've asked the title company has responded, no, there's no record easement. Joy's office has done research to find out if there's an easement. She couldn't find an easement. To our knowledge, there is not an easement.
Okay, and the county wants you to supply a 40-foot easement, correct?
No, my understanding is.
Only 20?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, well then why do you even need the neighboring property owner?
well, we really don't. We're just trying to be good neighbors.
Okay,
Okay, so I guess, Mr. Chairman, then that would clear up if lot 3 and lot 2 only have a 20-foot driveway coming in, that's all Public Works is requiring?
No,
I don't remember what the requirements are.
the letter I got from, the information I got from Brian Edwards in his office was it has public access. And he hasn't asked this.
We don't
We
have
haven't
any-
developed, he hasn't asked us to identify specifically where that's gonna be because we haven't developed.
This is the sketch plan.
Okay.
So
There's a message from Brian Edwards on the
20
screen.
feet is plenty for a driveway from Brian Edwards.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what it comes down to is it would be nice, if you had,
they're gonna have to parallel road.
Right.
yeah, it'd be nice if you had 40 feet in one road.
Yep.
But if he chooses not to convey an easement to you, you're gonna move forward with a 20-foot easement.
That's right.
Okay, we got that
Good to
clear.
go.
Any further discussion on that? Any further public, this is a public hearing, any further public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we close public hearing.
Second,
Moving second to close the public hearing, further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thanks, Scott.
What's the pleasure of the board? Thanks, Scott.
Mr. Chairman,
Nope. Oh, you had a question?
Nope.
Oh, okay, I'll move that we approve the Straw Igloo minor subdivision sketch plan review.
Move, is there a second?
second,
Moving second and further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, thank you. Thanks, Kim. So you're gonna move right into the Kramer minor subdivision plat review.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Jody. Okay. Cody's here for that. I thought Cody was leaving.
So this property is in the zoning district GRP, the planning area is PAL. We did receive a final plat application for this minor subdivision, January this year. And then we did receive, we identified and had some corrected pieces, show up on that. We got the new final plat on February 5th of this year. And this will be a 5-lot minor subdivision, 1 lot of 21.67 acres, 1 lot of 17.3 acres, and 3 10-acre lots, all for residential use. The location, you saw it on figure 2. It's along State Highway 295 and County Lane 6. It's about 1.5 miles north of Powell. And of course, you did see the final plat, which is on the second page of our report. This property is primarily flat. It's currently vacant, irrigated land. In terms of municipal review, it's not within 1 mile of the city of Powell, so municipal review is not required. I don't believe we notified the city of Powell. Notices are not required for a public hearing. Public comments, we did receive an email. Again, I think that was before even you saw the sketch plan review. A neighbor, I believe to the south, commented on her sighting of raptors and cottonwood trees. We contacted Game and Fish. They sent someone out to do an inspection. That day, that person told us they found no evidence of raptors, no nests. They said essentially they'd be fine with this subdivision moving forward. And they also said that they contacted the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they had the same conclusion, move forward with the subdivision, or at least they had no issues with raptors. The county commissioners reviewed this sketch plan on December 15th of last year. And finding that it was, I'm sorry, I've got a page off, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back, Mr. Chairman, I apologize, I got my pages wrong. I did mention this is in the GRP. These lot sizes are consistent with the GRP in terms of neighboring land uses. You see that in figure 3. It's surrounded by some residential uses to north and south and ag uses to the west and east. So when the county commissioners approved this on page 5, there was a list of conditions that all of you recommended. Most of these things have already been met. There's a couple things relating to a homeowner association agreement and addressing a road. Originally, this subdivision was going to have the road coming down from the north on the east side of this. That road has gone away. Now it's just an easement. There will be a road on that easement in the future, but it'll be for a subdivision that's just to the east of this property. So right now, on the east side of this existing parcel, it's just a easement. We had a plat review committee meet, and they submitted their comments, made comments on February 4th of this year. So there were some corrections and changes that were identified. Then we had a new final plat, as I mentioned, that showed up on February 5th. On page 6, we have all the submissions that are required for final plat review and the supporting documents, and all those things have been met. We have findings, and we have one recommended condition. And I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for?
Well, I got one quick stupid question. How much time did you spend tracking this damn hawk down?
We'd already received comments from Game and Fish, or probably no comments, but that was their comment. And then so we just sent another message to them about this, and they sent someone out.
And they had to send somebody out there because they saw a hawk sitting in a tree.
Yeah, and did an observation, and didn't find any nests and didn't see any raptors. And then they reported back.
Okay.
And they said they also reported U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They didn't have really any comments either.
Okay, it's just insane what our world's coming to. But anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further questions? Comments, not a public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve.
Second.
Moving second to approve. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Maybe.
Planning and zoning is doing a great job of getting these things through, but at this application date for last week, my firm alone submitted 2 simple subs, 1 minor and 2 major subs. And so I'm just curious of what the commission's thinking about to get through planning and zoning with this load that's coming up. And that's just one firm. I feel like there was another 5 or so coming up. Like even on this one got pushed a month just because there were so many in the queue.
That's on our radar, and we've had those concerns brought forward to us. We've also shared with folks that under the current budget issues we're having, we're gonna do what we can with what we have. And unfortunately, that might mean people are having to wait. I mean, that's just we said this might happen if the budget continues the direction it is. And so we're trying, we're discussing, there's discussions on having more meetings, but every one of the planning and zoning meetings costs the county. And so, and even if we have more P and Z meetings, how much can we absorb? So, yep, the county's growing, and it's gonna cost to continue to do what we need to do to keep it moving.
Yeah, and if it's a $600 meeting, we definitely help out with that to push some of our projects forward. But I know there's a lot of the backside of staffing and other stuff.
There is, but no, we need those comments need to be brought forward. It's, our county has lived well for quite some time and had things pretty easy. When you go to other states and I don't know about other counties in Wyoming, but you go to other states and see folks standing in the hallways in lines clear out of the county offices waiting to get stuff done, or the state offices waiting to get stuff done. I mean, I hate to see that reality land in Park County, but it's starting to creep in of it's gonna take longer to get stuff done. So that's my soapbox. Appreciate it. Thanks, Cody.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks, commissioners.
You bet.
Thank you.
Hi.
Next up, we have Park County Director Karen Horner to give us an update on the library. We got Board Member Pat is there with her. Take it away.
All right. So we're taking this opportunity that you gave us to update you on what's going on in the Park County library system and what's going on in the libraries themselves. I want to take a moment to talk about what the board wants to do with the library system. We're building on the efforts of past boards to bring our libraries into line with the trends across the country in libraries, which is to turn them from repositories of books and places for people to go to read, to centers, to community centers where, as a matter of fact, one author calls them palaces for the people, places where people of all economic backgrounds, all races can go to mingle, to learn, and to create, and very often to reinvent themselves. People in our economy in particular are suffering from job loss and the need to have the resources to make themselves into something better. In short, what the libraries are trying to do is fill those gaps with the kind of resources that people need. We are fast becoming both social and economic multipliers in the communities we serve. I think in Cody, we're doing an excellent job of just exactly that. In Powell, not so much. The last needs assessment we had said that the Powell Library is insufficient, delinquent in every area except its people. The librarians themselves got high marks for doing what they could with the resources and the space they had available. we're spending time now looking at ways that we can meet this gap between building a new library. And like you were saying, Mr. Chairman, it's bad economic time. Realistically, it's going to be years. At best estimates, as I can figure it out, 4 to 5 years if everything goes well, before we can start to offer Powell what Cody has. And we're building on what Cody has all the time. So Powell is falling farther and farther behind. So we're looking at ways to bridge that gap, and we'll be coming back to you with ideas on that subject. In the meantime, we have one other issue in Powell that I'd like to cover, and a couple of other things before I turn it over to Karen. The issue is land ownership. As you know, the city of Powell owns the land under the library. We lease it to the county. The city was actually unaware of that. In a phone conversation not too long ago, Jeff Bowman, who is one of the Powell reps on board, mentioned it to the mayor, who was totally unaware of the situation, which actually wasn't surprising because we were unaware of it until we started doing the research. So tonight, Jeff and I and Karen are meeting with the city council. I'm sure that they have been briefed by this time by the mayor about this situation. We will be asking them to please consider transferring that land to the county so that we have a county land and building ownership and we don't have this split thing. Failing that, because our lease expires in 14 years, we want to, at a minimum, get another 99-year lease. Ideally, the city will see that it is in everybody's best interest simply to transfer the land, which they were unaware they owned anyway. So that's just that situation in Powell. Finances. The board is taking its financial responsibilities very, very seriously. And we have moved all of our excess resources, financial resources, that aren't held at the state into a money market account. We can pull it out as we need it. In the meantime, it's earning us 0.17% of interest, and which is a whole lot better than the 0.001 it was getting before. Now, this means that as you give us money, we will move it into that account, and then we will pull out wages and expenses on a monthly basis with no fees. We have also, Karen has also contacted the state and urged them to restore our 2% interest on the money that is held in the state. And they are considering that and have said that they probably will do it. So that's our actions on that. We are also building on task boards and what they have done and reviewing our manuals and our policies, particularly personnel policies. Karen is doing an excellent job of reorganizing what we have and working with this compensation study that is being done by a paid analyst to bring our salaries in line with the county, and two, to make our system much more transparent and less, because it will be less complex. We'll be able to look at the budget and actually see what we're spending and where we're spending it, and we won't have all these different categories that confuse the issue. We're doing that across the board and working on job descriptions and other things. So now, in the meantime, we also have a lot to tell you about that the librarians are doing, and Karen, and I also, of course, you guys all know Karen. And Scott, I don't know if you've met before, Mr. Commissioner. but Karen was new at this.
Well, thank you very much for giving your time. I know how extremely busy you are. My previous position, I reported to the county commissioner's version, so I know it's really busy. So basically, I just want to come and give you an update of just what's happening at the library, so we're all in the same loop and everything that's going on. Like Pat says, we've been kind of working a lot behind the scenes, redoing the job descriptions and job titles because nothing was in line as to what other libraries did or even in line. So nothing translated if somebody was to move on to a different county or different library system. So we're trying to make everything a little bit more efficient, less job titles across the board, so all three libraries are consistent and the same. My big focus is that we're a county library system and not three separate libraries. And so we're, I'm big on outreach and programming across the board and really serving the community. And I think that's our number one role and purpose is as a county library is to serve the county in any capacity that we need to serve the public based on what they want and what they need. And that's been our big focus. And so, we've been doing a lot of fun stuff in the library just to get people in the doors and, and talking with other county libraries throughout Wyoming and even the country. We are one of the few who are offering in-house programming. So we're doing story time, book clubs, crafts, we're doing it inside the library. And so a lot of the other Wyoming libraries don't offer that. So it's a big plus. And we're getting nothing but positive feedback from the public that they're really enjoying the fact that we're open. They're allowed to come in and a little bit more normal behavior. Our seating's out, we're doing programs. We're still offering curbside service for people who aren't comfortable, and we're still cleaning and quarantining our books and things like that, but people are really appreciated. And then in the beginning of the year, we went fine-free, which we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the public about that. And so, again, it's another, especially during these economic times that we're looking at, it's just one less burden that people feel and they can, the library's there, we're free, we're doing fun stuff. And I'm a big community outreach person, so I've had the pleasure of connecting with a lot of groups in the county and I've connected with the Stampede Rodeo and the historical in Buffalo Bill Historical Center and the Meeteetse Museums and the Rotary and the Art League and Economic Development in Powell and the Makerspace. And so our goal is really to get beyond our brick and mortar walls and to really be out there in the public and do a lot of fun things. Our circulation numbers are staying steady. And so is even our visits to the door, they're staying steady. And so people are really appreciating the fact that we're open and applied for a lot of grants. One of the grants we got was for a business grant. And so, we haven't got all the details yet, but again, it's just to serve the people and it's geared for small businesses. And so again, we'll just be that extra resource to help people. So, yeah. So I just wanted to give you a little update and if you had any questions and for me, I'm really enjoying the snow.
Mr. Chairman, I think, for somebody who used to speak City of Powell with their government, I'm pretty sure that they'll be able to transfer that because I know that that spot is gold. It is a perfect place because the middle school is right across the street. So it's not just a reference area, it's also a place to safely be, and a place for, of course, moms and dads on cell phones picking their kids up all the time. And the location is just ideal to be near a middle school like that. So I know that I don't think the city will have any qualm at all. Do you remember if there was a deal set up from long ago? Was it one of the $1 deals where they transferred? There was no.
There's a real history there, Mr. Commissioner, and I'd be happy to share that with you. In one sentence, the library was formed by a club which owned it for many, many years. And the city leased the land, the city was given the land by the Bureau and leased it to the ladies of that club. And so the lease just kept running while the club transferred the building.
One of those things you forget about.
And you forgot about the land.
And I think that even the location of the makerspace too, kitty corner for that could be a great place for young adults
Yes,
to.
we're looking at that very, very actively and talking to PEP and the chamber people who represent the AmeriCorps, volunteer and makerspace. So yes, we have that very much on the top of our mind and appreciate you bringing it up again because it is very important, I think, that I don't know if most of you are aware, Makerspace began in a little library in Connecticut. and became such a big idea that it spread to libraries across the country and then out of the libraries and into independent places like we have in Powell. So the two missions are aligned so closely that we actually feel like it would be to the benefit of everyone. But again, this is all in the talking stage.
Well.
We got a couple minutes. I'm gonna throw a wild idea at you guys. I've been thinking about. You know, first of all, I want to preface what I'm gonna say, that the Park County Library System is a great asset to this community and the county, and everybody loves what you folks do. But looking down the road, we're very short on revenue at the county level. And I think it's very important that we try to the best of our ability to maintain the services that we have now with our library system, because people love it, they really do, and it's something we really need. And I think this coming budget, the budget 21-22, I think we're gonna be in fairly good shape. I'm very concerned about 22 and 23. And it's looking like right now, there's gonna be some major cuts coming. And I just had an idea the other day, ways to raise revenue. And just throwing it out on the table, haven't discussed it with any of my fellow commissioners. The possible idea of starting a library district. Maybe that's something that the voters would vote for. They didn't like the general purpose tax that we put on the ballot last fall. But with a district and the value and the worth of the library system, maybe it's something they would vote for. You can, if the voters approve it, you can actually have up to 3 mills, which would be countywide, which would give you somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.5 million a year. Just, I throw it out on the table.
Mary, comment on that? Until 14, 15 years ago, we did have a mill levy. I mean, we did, but it was a fraction of the county's levy, the county share of the levy. The county simply split off a certain amount and said, this is the library. And in bad years, we really had to suck it up. In good years, we socked money away, mostly down at the state where we were getting 2% interest on it. But that changed a few years back, and I don't know, Commissioner Field, if you remember exactly when that was.
No, I know.
No, it was when we went to a zero balance budget, and we basically put, just instead of awarding you that amount, we went to, you're just one of our, basically kind of like one of our departments, and we awarded you, you brought in our budget and we approved or didn't approve your budget. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we don't have to discuss it.
No, everything is worth discussing.
Yeah, and this has a history, so I think it's very much worth discussing.
Okay, well, we thank you for the update.
Well, thanks so much.
Stay warm.
For taking your time.
Thank you very much.
On your otherwise serious day.
Yeah, where's the fun part?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Joy's out there.
Yep, she's there.
Next, Park County Planning and Zoning Director Joy Hill is going to go over and review and approve and allow chair to sign 3 subdivision improvement agreements. Trying to streamline things. I like that.
Yeah, we'll try to get caught up. So first is the Winchester Major Subdivision Phases 4 and 5. This is a build improvement subdivision improvement agreement, meaning they're going to build the improvements. They have chosen to wait for final plat review until those improvements have been installed, just in case there's any modifications as a part of that process. And so Brian Skorick has reviewed and approved this particular subdivision improvement agreement. The county engineer has reviewed all of the building plans, the grading and erosion plans, signage plans, stormwater plans. So unless you have other questions or concerns about that, it's been through the ringer.
So recommendation from your office is to approve.
To approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve.
Second.
And allow the church.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next.
So Flying O and Sandstone Ridge are adjacent minor subdivisions. They will be sharing a road and the improvements that go along with each side of the road. The county attorney agreed that we could still achieve this with 2 regular subdivision improvement agreements. They're basically just responsible for all of it, both of them. Again, this is a build improvements, which means they are building the improvements and they are choosing to wait for final plat approval until those improvements are done. And so county attorney has reviewed, he had no issues, and Brian Squirk reviewed and he approved. And so I would recommend approval of both Flying O and Sandstone. You could maybe choose to do 2 separate motions if you
Yeah, that's, I mean, see, even though they're sharing, we probably should treat them separately. So any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Explain to me, okay, so they share the road. And the developer is responsible at this time?
Yes.
And in the agreement, then basically it's forever. So once the developer has sold all the lots, does it ever go to the lot owners?
So there's an HOA and covenants that would cover that on both sides.
Okay.
So they will have to have an HOA. They cannot not have one.
And that is part of
That
this
will address the
improvement?
maintenance and ongoing snow removal and things like that.
Okay. Well, see, the agreement as covenant, reading it at first, I mean, that's what I thought it meant, that eventually it goes to the lot owners within the HOA. But under the way it reads, it's just the developer and his heirs forever is responsible for that road. And I was like, how can we do that? But,
I agree, the wording is a little confusing.
okay. So as long as it does go to the HOA.
It will, yes.
Even though we can enforce that.
Well, we don't.
We're
enforce the HOA,
requiring
we
it
require
here.
it.
We require they have one.
Yep.
Okay.
Just as we
That's my
require
only
they have a
question.
subdivision improvement agreement.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the subdivision improvement agreement for Flying O minor subdivision and allow chairman to sign.
Second.
moving second and further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next. Motion to, on the other one.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve Sandstone Ridge minor subdivision improvement agreements as presented and allow chairman to sign.
Second.
Moving second, is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Joyce.
So if I can get those signed copies, we need the originals, when they're done being signed.
Okay,
Do you need resolution numbers?
No resolutions on these.
Okay.
Just motions.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right, next up is, oh, I guess I should have put my glasses on. I thought we were at 11. I thought it said 11, so I'm 10 minutes ahead of schedule.
You're way ahead.
That's what happens when I forget my glasses. Well, we're moving right along. Next up is approve and allow the chair to sign at the closing of the Clark property we purchased next to the Clark landfill. We've already executed a contract with them. It's got to go through obviously the title company and all that research, but when that point in time comes, unless one of you wants to go down there and sign and sit in at the closing, you can make a motion to allow me to sign.
So movement, Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded, further discussion. Kelsey?
Is the motion contingent on the information compiled by the title company on that easement and
I don't believe that motion either. All that motion is allowing me to be the signator. And if it's not copacetic, I'm not signing.
okay,
So you got my word.
okay, okay.
Mr. Chairman, that was kind of my concern is the fact, even though the title may come up clear with any liens and all that, the definite fact that surface minerals are not always in those titles, so make sure that there is nothing retaining surface mineral rights.
It has to all be cleared with the title company before we can move
I
forward.
don't think they look for that though. Surface mineral will be,
Well, but service,
could be added at this time.
right? Can you read that chat that just came from Brian because it went off the screen? Susan,
Excuse, what, sorry?
I just had a chat from Brian, a comment from Brian, and I can't access that screen.
Mr. Chairman, where I'm going with this, to my knowledge, I can sell you the land, but I can also, and it could have nothing, it's always assumed that the surface minerals go with the land unless I retain it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, make sure that this guy is.
Yeah, no, that would have to be addressed in the closing documents if he would.
Doesn't mean we can't mine it, but we'd have to pay a royalty to him.
Yeah, and
That's not the
yeah, no,
purpose of-
I get what you're saying, but it would
Okay.
have, and the chat from Brian says we will bring the findings of the title and mineral reviews to the commissioner before closing. So you guys will have a chance to see it before I sign off on it. All this is just allowing me to be the signatory.
Agreed.
Okay, further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving way ahead of schedule, but we'll just go ahead with it. We've got Mike Garza is here to approve replacing Park County Building and Grounds staff, and then second issue of approved legacy lease agreement changes. Mike?
Good morning. So as you're aware, we're down to full-time maintenance guys for the day crew for buildings and grounds. At this time, I would like to ask for the replacement of one of those positions. The other one was a grounds position. I think we can hold off for another month or two before we decide what direction we want to go. Can we do grounds with a couple part-time? Does it have to be a full-time position? I guess there's some more conversation and brainstorming Brian and I want to do with that to determine whether we want to replace both full-time positions. So at this time, I am asking if I can advertise for the replacement as a single full-time maintenance staff here in Cody. Also, we've lost two full-time custodians. We did have a part-time custodian that's interested in one of the full-time positions. If the fine with the board, I would like to bring that part-time employee. She's been with us for a couple of years now. I'd like to bring her up into the full-time position. So we're looking for a full-time and a part-time custodian to replace those positions. And I would need to advertise, and those are both here in Cody also. One for the Public Works and old drug court building that Collection Professionals is currently in, and one here for the courthouse main floor.
Okay. What?
The maintenance guy that you want to replace, what is, that we lost one, and are we gonna be bringing this one in at the same level?
No, we'll probably be bringing it in closer to the baseline level. He was a Tech 3 that we lost, which is the highest tech you could be without being manager. We'll probably be looking for a Tech 1 to bring them in and show them the ropes. And then they will have to, prove their worth and skill set as they move up through the regular chain of grade and step process.
Now, was this over in Powell or?
It was here.
In Cody?
Mm-hmm. Yep, both positions were from Cody.
Custodial wise as well?
Yep.
I move to approve Mike to replace one full-time maintenance tech, correct? One part-time custodian, one full-time custodian.
Second. Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Thanks, Mike.
You bet. And on the legacy lease. I was contacted by Kathy Eisnagel early last week, I believe. It just sounds like they're kind of in limbo as to whether the company is going to stay or whether they're going to do some downsizing, it sounds like. And she made reference to the Rocky Mountain region, whether they were going to kind of. So they're asking for a six-month lease and then monthly after that. So it sounds like they're looking pretty short term. They do have just over 8,000 square feet currently at the complex. I think it's close to that 8,700 mark. They are the second largest tenant, minus behind Northwest College. So at 17% of our leasable space.
Does it?
Do our leases have a get out clause, for lack of a better term, at 30 days, or, I mean, what, do we have any kind of a,
There used to be some verbiage in the contracts that colleges have made use of it, that under financial duress, they could give a 30 or 60-day notice. And if they prove financial duress, the county would let them out with no penalty. I haven't read through the legacy lease. They've been here a while. I'm assuming that language is in it, but I haven't verified. I do know they all say, approval from both sides with 30 or 60 days written notice, it can go out, but I don't know what are in that contract.
Mr. Chairman, what is their current rate per square foot?
That's a good question.
I mean, if they were ongoing, we'd have to honor basically with a percentage increase. But if we're redoing everything and they're going short term, I want to make sure that we're not giving them the 1989 rate.
Right.
Do you know what that is?
So, Mr. Chairman, let me find it. Hold on just a minute.
We know our average is about $12.50, whether or not we're in that.
Sorry. Our legacy is they have 8,700 square feet at 1476 a
Which-
square foot.
Which falls in that
Yeah.
estimated 14 to 16, so I guess.
If we do indeed have a termination clause in there, and I'm sure it's in Legacy's lease because it's in all the rest of them, I don't see any reason to just go for 6 months and then a month after that. Just sign a year lease and call it good. If something happens, they want to terminate, so be it.
Okay.
Yeah, no action needed if you want to run that by them.
Yep, I'll go talk to Kathy. I can run up to the complex and meet with her and just, I think I'm not sure exactly, but their concern may have been that, you wouldn't let them out after X amount of time, which is, I think, why they wanted a 6 month and then month to month to month to give them lets that door kind of open up every month.
And their current lease is over when?
Into March.
Okay, come back to us on the first meeting in March.
Okay.
And have a conversation and research the termination language.
Okay, are we doing the lease, the same 2.4% increase, just like any other tenant that would be renewed? Okay. All right, we'll do.
Thank you, Mike. You betcha. Okay, well, next up is we're gonna review the charitable relief grants. So we need to come up, we awarded, in those glasses thing.
410?
410,000.
We awarded 410,000, basically. Hey, cheaters?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. To what level? Oh, perfect, that's good, thanks.
They're very becoming, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Makes you look astute.
It makes me look like a what? Intelligent. Oh, okay, good.
You said stooge.
Yeah. So we did award 410,000, almost 411,000. There's 189,000 still sitting on the table. We asked our administrator to reach out to the organizations that we didn't approve. If they wanted to resubmit, we're going to allow them to resubmit if they could tailor their application to our satisfaction that was going to be used for COVID related. We were able to award them a lot of that to folks for reimbursement because it definitely was spent on COVID related. With the language that came forward from the state that we could award based upon not being able to have fundraisers, it sounded great until we found out that they had to certify that those expenditures would be spent COVID related moving forward. That being said, we felt we weren't able to award to some of the organizations, so we've had some that resubmitted. And so I guess the first step for our consideration is from the American Legion Post 26 of Powell. They're asking for 2,500. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we did get this letter of explanation from them, and in my mind, they certainly will qualify moving forward. So I go ahead and move to approve.
Second that.
So we moved and seconded to award $2,500 to the American Legion Post 26 in Powell. Further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Just going with the stack that Susan provided for me, we've got Powell Legion American Baseball. They're asking for to buy a van to help spread the kids out during transport to social distance. They're asking for, I think it's kind of confusing.
$23,090.
Yeah, 23,000. Well,
Soap dispensers.
yeah, I'm just saying they're asking for so much for the van. They're asking for 690 plus shipping for soap dispensers. They'd like to put up plexiglass at the concessions area for $500. So the big ticket item there is the van. And what are your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, I think they've justified their expenditures to be COVID related, and I move to approve the full of $23,090.
Okay. Was that second coming out of your?
Seconding that.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the grant to the Legion Baseball.
That includes the van and everything.
Who seconded?
They can
Scott.
justify it. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
simply because if they're saying for spacing, I mean, I know we're riding some gray areas here, but if
We've
we
been
can
riding
just,
gray areas.
I know, but if you say, I need to separate, we can't put all these
Yeah.
kids this many close, this packing 20 of them in a minivan anymore, we need to separate them out. I guess that's,
And so that's, you know, we don't have a crystal ball, but I believe we're gonna have some COVID-related restrictions in the unforeseeable future. And so then what they're doing is they're buying this van in anticipation of having to operate under COVID-related restrictions. And so that's how they're justifying it, and if that's how they're justifying it, I guess I'm not gonna argue with them.
Mr. Chairman, I think that we asked them, how is it COVID related, and they responded.
Yeah.
That was a good response, so.
right.
Okay, moved and seconded, further discussion. All those in favor? Okay, next up is the youth clubs of Park County. And they retooled their request. It's at 17,000.
675.
Dawson?
17,675.
Yeah. And they're saying that it's gonna be used COVID related. So a lot of folks were impacted due to the COVID, loss of income, loss of jobs. And so that's how they're justifying moving forward with this. Crickets.
In the paragraph underneath the chart on their request, we'll open our doors for the summer session, which starts June 1, to all families free of charge for as long as these funds last. So they're using these funds to allow the programs to keep going due to being closed last year and not having the availability to do the programs because of COVID. Is that what I'm understanding, or what's this got to do with June? Okay.
That's that gray area again. Susan, do you have something to input here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think Tina meant by that was, so this was lost revenue from when they did close their doors in March.
Right.
So she's hoping June 1st, when they have, they're out of school and the doors really open for those low income families, that they will provide that membership for them going through the summer at no cost.
So,
That's the way she explained it to me.
so basically it's like a scholarship then, is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
That a lot of our families, of course, haven't been working as
Right.
well.
But the problem is, here's the problem that, and I'm not sure this passes the smell test, and it's just, I'm tired of, having, as Joe said, riding into this gray area, but, so, in order for them to, they're opening their doors free of charge and saying it's open to everybody. Well, every family was not impacted by COVID. So if they were gonna use these funds to grant scholarships on a case-by-case basis for families that were impacted due to COVID, it's different than what I'm reading here.
Chairman, did you make that stipulation? Did you give her the money?
Well, it is in that, it is in the language that that's how it has to be done.
Right.
Lloyd?
Is this the same group that was, the Boys and Girls Club in Powell that they're tearing the building down? Why in the hell are they leaving so much money on the table? They could take every bit of our money left, as far as I'm concerned, and justify the expense of tearing that building down and building new for expansion. I'm just saying,
I understand, and that's what I'm struggling with, is we've been given these guidelines
money
by
on
the
the
state,
table here.
and the state's been given guidelines by the feds. I think, every one of these nonprofits is eligible and ought to receive as much as we can give them, based upon the amount of money that was shoveled out the door for the business relief grants with very little oversight. Okay, there's my soapbox. But, so I think if they come to us and they're saying they're gonna spend it on COVID related, that's me.
Give them the money.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm just saying, that we're gonna end up with over $100,000 left. They could have requested the other 100,000 on their building over there, and I don't know why they didn't.
Well,
But
we can only do so much. We asked them to come back, they came back.
And Mr. Chairman, aren't they also signing the agreement that this is related to?
Everyone is signing the agreement. They're all signing it.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a motion?
We do not have a motion.
Okay, I'll move that we approve this.
Oh, yeah, we did have, it was moved and seconded. I'm sorry,
Oh,
in the
okay.
discussion,
All right.
because
Yes,
your
Scott
phone seconded it.
yeah, that phone
Yeah.
made me
So
second.
it has been moved and
Okay.
seconded, so further discussion. All those in favor?
I,
Okay. Next up, we have the Quake submitted a second application for new equipment. They're requesting $8,000 for new equipment because they have to get rid of their old equipment that's been used before because of COVID. So,
Mr. Chairman, letter of explanation certainly satisfies me, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
second.
moved and seconded. Is there further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Cody House of Prayer Evangelical Church. Evangelical, there we go. And they applied before?
Yeah, they applied before, and we asked them for clarification, and we got none.
And so she came back and they gave you a profit and loss for
Right.
each year. So what they're doing is asking for that loss, which came to $11,473.12 from donations of their child care loss. And that's all they're asking.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, their loss, I presume, was a result of having to close down.
So they're gonna use these funds moving forward for,
Well, that's my only question moving forward. There's no explanation how they're gonna spend these funds
Right.
moving forward.
Didn't they, I thought, when, maybe it was in what we did before, but in the profit or loss, I think she says, they don't separate out their benevolent
Right.
gifts like the other 2 or 3 churches that we worked with, although they do the same types of things. It it says benevolence aid with COVID, some COVID and some non-COVID related circumstances. So they did a lot of the same things the other churches that we approved to. She just didn't, they just don't have a separate fund that they listed them separately. So I don't know how you justify.
They've signed on the bottom line that the funds they're gonna use are gonna be expended COVID related.
Mhm.
And they also add what Joe says, there seems to be some gray area.
It's gray.
It's
Gray
really
hair.
dark gray.
Yeah.
My input, I would love to give all this to everybody that asked, but we specifically ask, come back and tell us where you're gonna spend it. Not say that we lost it. I don't know if I hate picking one out of a group, but I mean, everybody else has said, this is where we're spending it.
And that's what they were asked.
Yeah. And that's, Mr. Chairman, that's what the pastor sent back to us, so. That's what's in there.
Okay, well,
Well, for the sake of argument, I'll make the motion that we approve, and I'll just see if we get a second.
I'll second it.
moved and seconded for this discussion.
Well, yeah, in response to what you said, and when we went this one last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I was basically in opposition to it. But it is extremely gray, and they don't, as Darcy pointed out, they're not separating, they're basically the church and the daycare center.
Right.
So it is a church. If they get the money, I'm sure it'll be used for beneficial things. If they have people in their congregation that are sick with COVID and they need some food, I'm sure they'll give
So
them.
for the sake of argument, we did ask them to come back and say how they're gonna expend it, but by signing on the bottom line, they said they're going to
They say
spend it.
they're gonna, they will spend it on COVID relief.
I'm good with awarding it, however, this was your
Yeah.
original one. Everyone that I had, I asked them, in the event, would you, if asked by the county, can you produce receipts?
The only
And what
thing-
was their
yeah,
answer?
The only thing I can say in response to that is this application came in late. I didn't get it until the day that we met,
Right.
so I didn't get an opportunity to call anybody.
As long as they're willing to produce it, because if we get audited, we're gonna say, hey,
Yeah.
we need this. Not
Mr.
just your
Chairman.
signature here, but we need receipts, so.
And at least this applicant actually went and read the Health Cares Act and the same confusion that we had. So they did put in some diligence for it. Maybe that was in their mind. That was, they justified, so.
Okay. Well, further discussion on the motion. All those in favor?
I-
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, Seroptimist International.
Cody Community
Cody
Theater.
Theater.
Oh, excuse me, Cody Community Theater, yes, sorry. Going with this one.
This is, I'm sorry, this is a real stretch.
Unless they're doing the actual theater about COVID-19.
Well, they should have thought about
I
that.
mean, we need more sneezers over here.
Okay, well, moving right along. We are now at the Seroptimist International, Powell, Wyoming.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve 2,500 for the synopsis.
Second.
Moving
Can't
second.
pronounce it, but you know what it is.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Susan?
Okay, so I have the commander from the Legion. He just wrote and he said that they have had to expand their kitchen there at the American Legion with a total amount of 5,000. And he was hoping that you as commissioners would consider that additional request.
On top of the
The
2,500?
On top of, but
And originally you gave them 3,000 in the first go round for other items of PPE and that kind of stuff, so.
it's up to the board.
I can have him dial in if you want to and talk to him.
Well, the expansion of the kitchen,
How is that?
how's it COVID
Do
related?
you want me, shall I have him call in on my phone?
He can try it, yeah, he can try to. You guys want to, I guess you want to consider it. It's not part of the application. For these applications at the end.
Mr. Chairman, I think that is one of the state's requisites that we have an application in.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
I would hold off on it.
Okay.
So I would like for that to happen, but I mean, it's.
Yeah, so what if, Youth Clubs of America was on the phone with, heard us here and said, hey, we can write off this whole damn building. And they call in, so, yeah.
I would agree. I would say no.
Mr. Chairman, is there, I'm assuming that after today, I guess, is what I'm gonna say, we are completed. So if we are completed, do we need any type, or do you need any type of authorization to return the remainder of funds?
I have to sign that agreement and certifying what we are. Excuse me. And by default, that is going to
Go back to the state.
it's gonna say how much goes back to the state, Colleen.
Yeah, and so in doing all this, we have to have the checks out by Friday, and then we'll have the final number for you, and then on March 1, I believe, is when Barb has to ACH the money back to us.
Has to be there by March 1, so probably
Yes.
And I
February.
need to execute that agreement. I gotta sign that paperwork prior to March 1.
It has been
Yes.
started, I just need to finish it.
Yeah, you just need to put in the final number.
Yeah.
Okay,
You don't need any authorization to do that.
it wouldn't hurt for us to have a motion given you the authority to sign.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded, give me the authority to sign the final paperwork for the community charitable relief funds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Colleen?
Just to cover our bases too, I think it would be wise for us to make a motion that you guys approve the checks for the amounts and that we will send out.
Vouchers.
Wouldn't those be part of the vouchers?
Well, but we're not doing vouchers
No,
before
vouchers
Friday.
is-
We don't do vouchers, but
All
I
right.
have to look back. Did we mention anything in the prior minutes? I can't remember.
Well, but this would be additional. What we
There was
did today.
discussion,
Yeah.
but I don't know if we.
Do you have the total for us to move on?
The total amount is $476,206.04.
How many cents?
4
Four.
476,206.04.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the payment for the charitable cares funds to everything that we've moved, or associations that we've moved on, in a total amount of $476,206.04.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Well, I'm glad we got that. So what we have left is work session this afternoon. Unless there's any other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
No movement, Chairman.
Second.
Move and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The employment benefit is the work
That's the work
session,
session.
Oh, yeah.
and then as well as the grounds.
Yeah, the walkthrough. So, sorry, walkthrough to go commandeer space away from.
From Jack. He's listening.